What's your perception of Pakistan? Because someone coming to Pakistan the first time ever, and especially in these sort of circumstances, the country is going through a lot.
To be honest, my perception is a positive one. There's a resilience that is ingrained, a thirst for knowledge, and we definitely note that in ACCA.
How difficult is it to work with the government, like in each country?
Like any big organization, government is another organization, only that they have even bigger and budgets and much more complex stakeholders and shareholders. It's ensuring that we bring that global perspective that we offer with a deep local knowledge and understanding of what are their priorities.
There is one other trend which we are seeing, and especially when we talk to the government, I think, and if you take the example of India as an example, there's a lot of outsourcing there. So I think one of the focus of the government is to start bringing the outsourcing model to Pakistan. But where do you see the overall sort of accounting outsourcing from Pakistan? Do you think there is an opportunity there?
In Pakistan, we see a huge opportunity with the skills that accountants can bring. So yeah, I'm very excited about that as a very big opportunity for ACCA to contribute in Pakistan. And again, one that Pakistan will be able to export and therefore being able to see as a center of excellence, not only in the region, but globally as well.
How do you see the role of Gen Z in becoming the corporate leaders in the future?
We are able to match that in the accounting profession. You can, start as an auditor, but then you can go and work for a corporate. You can work in risk management, but then you can, work in sustainability. You can work in FSMG, but you can also work in hospitality sector. So knowing that, being able to choose a profession that gives you multitude of options in your career is something that is very important for the Gen Z, but also the next generations forward.
Are you going to force your children to come into the accounting profession as well?
It's so funny that you should say that, because I would like to think that I wouldn't. And where they end up, like many young people, who knows?
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode. आज हमारे साथ लूसिया रियल-मार्टिन मौजूद हैं, जो एग्जीक्यूटिव रिलेशनशिप डायरेक्टर हैं ACCA में, और वो पाकिस्तान आई हैं. सो वी थॉट टू इनवाइट हर एंड सी व्हाट शी इज़ अप टू. ACCA पाकिस्तान में क्या कुछ कर रहा है, क्या नए इनिशिएटिव्स हैं, और इनके साथ गपशप लगाते हैं आज. लूसिया, थैंक यू सो मच फॉर टेकिंग द टाइम आउट.
It's a pleasure to be here with you.
And welcome to Pakistan. This is your first time.
It is my first time. It's a long time coming, and I'm so delighted to be here in Islamabad with you.
What's your perception of Pakistan? Because, a lot of people, I'm sure, might have asked you this, but as someone coming to Pakistan the first time ever, and especially in these sort of circumstances, the country is going through a lot for the last, few months and few years. But when you are in your home country, what's the overall sort of perception?
Well, I have to say that even though it's my first visit to Pakistan, I feel like I know Pakistan well. I've had the fortune throughout my career and the time with ACCA to work very closely with colleagues from Pakistan, not only because we have a very strong team in Pakistan, but because actually many of them work across many facets in ACCA. So I feel like I know Pakistan a lot more than I would have been not having been here before. I also have the fortune to actually, where I live, I'm based in Melbourne, Australia, and we also have a lot of people that originate from Pakistan. So to be honest, my perception, despite the difficulties that, as you noted, you're going through, is a positive one. There's a resilience that is ingrained, a thirst for knowledge, and we definitely note that in ACCA, and that's probably one of the areas that we really want to continue to participate and contribute towards.
And is there anything sort of particular which you're looking forward to doing in Pakistan? I'm sure you might have heard about the food, or the old city of Lahore. Is there anything like sort of a big agenda on your, the whole plan?
Well, I'm very lucky to have the opportunity to be here in Islamabad, and I'll also travel to Karachi and Lahore. So actually, one of the things that I look forward the most is it's really understanding the difference between the three cities. I've heard a lot about each one of the cities, the calmness of Islamabad, the buzziness of Karachi, and the majestic Lahore. So I look forward to actually really finding that out in each of the cities and with the people that I will be working and talking to. But to be honest, most of all that I'm looking forward to is the conversations that I will have here with our stakeholders, with our members, and also with the new generations that will make Pakistan, I think, a country that continues to thrive forward.
Oh, cool. Before we go more into like what you are doing in ACCA and like generally about the work, can you talk to me a little bit about your background? So you're from a very interesting country in Pakistan. I'm sure everyone knows about the Spain, especially, the football. So how was your sort of upbringing? Which sort of area are you from?
Yes, of course. Yeah. So I'm originally from Madrid, Spain. And I was there until I was 21, but I had a lot of desire to really understand the world. And as I pursued my studies in commerce, economics and marketing, I went to study in the UK. And then having lived and worked there for a number of years, then I moved over in Australia. So my background is very much on international business and strategy. And I had the fortune 20 years ago to actually then find my way into the accountancy profession. So it's that combination of international business and then finding a purpose within the accounting profession that sort of got me where I am here today. And I have had the fortune to be with ACCA for quite a number of years and contribute to the changing nature of the accounting profession and how we make it better for everyone.
And why the accountancy? Because like generally it's, the overall, like the generic perception is it's like very boring sort of, like it need to be like a creative or like engineering or doctor. Like what was your sort of connection when you were growing up, like, connecting with the accountancy? Where did that sort of thing comes from?
Yeah, look, I have to be honest, as I was growing up, I probably had a very similar perception of accounting because it was so connected to auditing. But as I discovered and as I went into the workplace, even before I joined the accounting profession working in Australia and now globally, what I realized is that finance professionals actually do a lot more than numbers. And then when I had the opportunity to work for the profession, I became very passionate about ensuring that we could tell everyone the many opportunities that a career in accounting can give you. The accounting is the beginning, and then what you can do with it is so much. And it's a great reflection of how many people that start with a qualification in accounting or that start as an accountant then go into being leaders in different sectors, across the world. So that I'm very passionate about because it's been able to match people's dreams with their skills and then also the needs that organizations and economies have. So yeah. Yeah,
no, that's cool. How did your sort of journey started with ACCA? Because it's been roughly 14 years that you're working with the organization. So what was your sort of initial point of joining and what was your first role?
Yeah, so as you well said, I have been with ACCA actually just coming up for 14 years in May. And I started as Director Emerging Markets Asia. I was based in Australia at the time, and I had been in the Australian accounting profession previously. But joining a global organization was certainly a big opportunity, and I was very excited about that. I moved very quickly within 4 years in a bigger role for emerging markets globally. And the role really was, connected to what I just said before, really understanding what are the needs of our country from a development, skills, and economic point of view, connecting it with the accounting profession and how ACCA could offer that as part of the ecosystem. So, the initial markets that I worked with were Vietnam, Cambodia, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. So countries that, maybe are in that growth stage of population and upskilling, trying to bring maturity through that upskilling to their economies, but with a long way of development to go. And we felt that we had a very significant role to play. So I've had the big fortune to be able to actually continue to replicate that across many markets. And as I said, by 2014, I was managing 40 countries across the world, but what we call emerging markets. Some of them were emerging economies, but not always. It was much more about the stage of the accounting profession development, our own development as an organization. And so all of that experience have got me where I am now. I'm part of the executive board at ACCA, but bringing always that sort of market dimension, how we ensure that while we are global, we take into account the local conditions and how we can be part of that local ecosystem that bring global standards.
And you said you have worked mostly with the emerging markets, Vietnam, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and you are managing a lot of countries, and it's very like sort of daunting just to hear that, like, managing such a big sort of portfolio. What are your sort of learnings while, because you are living in Australia, so your lens from seeing is this part of the world is quite different. So when you work with the emerging markets, what are some of the lessons which you have seen, or what are some of the experiences, and especially again working with Pakistan, with Bangladesh, sort of like, more or less the region is the same, but generally what was your sort of perception before, and then when you started working, how was the experience?
Yeah, look, that experience across those many countries, what they've given me is a great understanding of the complexities that it takes in terms of being able to develop a strategy where we're able to go to a country to really understand what is the role of organization like ACCA in the development of skills for young people. What is the role of ACCA in supporting policy, and really building that ecosystem of the different stakeholders, so government, educators, employers, and ACCA as a global organization, but with a deep-rooted local knowledge. We always start with the premise that being a global professional body that stands for global standards, we have to be very mindful of what's happening in the country. And so I was always wanted to really understand. And of course, that's why we have a presence in more than 100 countries. And members and students across 179 countries. So I think it's that combination and being able to, for me, it's always about listening, understanding, and then embracing, and being able to combine all of that to provide the right ecosystem in which ACCA can thrive as an organization, but always for our members and for our stakeholders and for the betterment of the economy and society. So it's quite a big dimension that we try to play.
And how difficult is it to work with the government, like in each country? Because generally, living in Pakistan and then seeing the government and working with the government sometimes, like for an international organizations, what sort of difficulties do you guys sort of see working with the government, or like what sort of a response you get when you go for the collaborations here?
Look, I think that we find that the government, as any other stakeholder, it's really about understanding what are their priorities, what is it that they're trying to address. Actually, ACCA as a global professional body has quite a significant membership of people working in the public sector. We probably are one of the largest accounting bodies. We have more than 63,000 members working in public sector in different countries. So I think we would find that we're not talking to the government as a foreign body, or because we would have a lot of members working in the government. But it's really understanding, what are the priorities for government, and really tapping into the area that relates to upskilling professionals. I think it's a very important agenda of many governments, because like any big organization, government is another organization, only that they have even bigger and budgets and much more complex stakeholders and shareholders, if you want, as the taxpayer. So I think for us is really ensuring that we take it from a local perspective, which is why, in places like Pakistan, we are present. We have been present for many, many years. We have a team right here in Islamabad, but across the country, in Lahore, in Karachi, in other cities such as Mulan, Faisalabad. And so it's ensuring that we bring that global perspective that we offer with a deep local knowledge and understanding of what are the priorities, and being able to offer that support. We do have in our public sector agenda a big significant priority in terms of how we ensure that government has upskilling and professionalization of their workforce as part of the agenda, and that often is a common opportunity for us to have discussions, and then from there being able to build support mechanisms.
There is one other trend which we are seeing, and especially when we talk to the government, I think, and if you take the example of India as an example, there's a lot of outsourcing there. And I think Pakistan, there's a new government. We were talking to the Ministry of IT and other departments. I think one of the focus of the government is to start bringing the outsourcing sort of model to Pakistan. Obviously, people are doing a lot, like on Fiverrs and Amazons and a lot of things. But where do you see not the role of ACCA, but like the overall sort of accounting outsourcing from Pakistan? Do you think there is an opportunity there?
Absolutely. And in fact, it is one of the areas that ACCA is very keen to contribute and collaborate in Pakistan, in that a sort of outsourcing shared services sector is one that ACCA globally has always been present. We have a sectorial approach in terms of how we support people through the qualification to go into the different sectors. We've talked about public sector, and this is a very important sector for ACCA. Also the public practice, but the shared services sector is our one of our 4 key sectors. And especially in Pakistan, we see a huge opportunity with the skills that accountants can bring. And actually, the number of people that you have here that can really continue to hone and develop those skills. It's a sector that we believe has a huge potential, and one that, having been able to support in other countries, like you said, we do a lot of work in Malaysia, in India, in Central and Eastern Europe. ACCA supports a lot of the shared services organizations and the sort of governmental agenda in that aspect to bring skills through our qualification, because it's very much embedded, but also through very specific upskilling programs. So, for example, we have certification on shared services. And so, I'm very excited about that as a very big opportunity for ACCA to contribute in Pakistan. And again, one that Pakistan will be able to export, and therefore being able to see as a center of excellence, not only in the region, but globally as well. So we're very committed to playing a role in that sector here.
Also, you said, obviously everyone knows ACC is such an old sort of organization. And I was going through your pages. I'm really bad with maths and, economy and like those sort of things. That's not my forte. But we have seen generally in the world, the corporate sector is like evolving rapidly. So obviously your core work is different, but then you also see the organizations like you and other organizations have started working around climate change, sustainability. a lot of women empowerment, like diversity, and focus on the culture as well. Like, how do you see the whole sort of evolution of the corporate world? Because you have worked, like at least for a decade, more than a decade. So what's happening like for you overall? How do you see the whole curve?
Yeah, look, all those areas that you touched on are very, very important. And I would say not just in corporate, but really in any organization. It's just that, for corporates, it's probably an agenda that they try to address more systematically. But for us at ACCA, we see that it's core to a professional accountant to be able to contribute to the financial sustainability of the organization that they work in, public, private, whether it's a corporate, whether it's an SME. And for us, is ensuring that we give them the skills, the knowledge that they need to be able to bring some of these issues through their organization. So we spend a lot of time ensuring that, whether it is our qualification, whether it is the continuous professional development that we offer, whether it is the thought leadership pieces that we bring forward, and that we collaborate also with corporates, are then incorporated in the strategic approach and in the strategies that organizations take. You've touched on quite a few areas that I'm sure we'll go into, but certainly sustainability in its broadest sense. It's something that ACCA has actually advocated for decades. So I've had the fortune to be working for 30 years, as I said before, 20 years in the accounting profession. I do remember even before working for ACCA, when I was in the Australian accounting profession, ACCA advocating for sustainability in the late 90s. It's just that now it's an imperative.
A bit trendy now.
Yeah, it's an imperative. It's now organizations have to pay attention. So sustainability for us, it relates to absolutely climate action and what it is that organizations are doing to understand their impact. And so we provide a lot of support through the qualifications, so that our members really understand what is their role. And it's not only accountants, but accountants are very well placed to play a role, because we need to, by starting to understand, what is the impact and how we measure that impact. And so it's a very exciting dimension for professional accountants to actually get into. It's as you were saying, before, people had that perception of accountants being boring. Well, there's nothing more exciting than to be able to actually be part of an agenda that is going to really address some of these challenges around the world. But sustainability also addresses areas of social equity. And this is again where ACCA has been a pioneer. We talk often about equity and inclusion and equality, and so for ACCA we've been doing that since the very beginning. In fact, that was part of one of the reasons why we were founded. But now the results is that 45% of our membership across the world, but many of them in Pakistan, are women.
Okay.
And 51% of our studentship, so these are future candidates that will become members, are women. And not only that,
45% is quite a big number. Yeah.
It is. And 51 of those that will come. But we have members, as I said, in 179 countries, which means, again, the diversity is in not just in gender, but also geographies, in the sectors that they operate in, the roles that they have. So I think we need to ensure that when we look at inclusion and diversities across all the different dimensions, and we believe that ACCA, through the programs that we offer and how people come and qualify with us, how they become part of the community thereafter as they become members, they can continue this quest into the organizations that they belong to.
And how do you see the whole work sort of space changing, especially after the COVID, generally, like obviously in Pakistan, like we talk a lot about work-life balance, and then the remote work, and then especially now the Gen Zs, because their sort of working style is quite sort of different. And generally, I think in ACCA as well, like we have seen the hybrid sort of model. I was talking to some of your colleagues, so there's a hybrid model here, then with a lot of other organizations as well. So as an organization, how do you guys sort of see the future sort of workspace? Like, where is it heading? What are some of the things or the researches which you are doing with the millennial or as well as with the Gen Z?
Yeah. Look, you've touched again on a number of big topics. So we had promoting the idea of flexibility again throughout. So if I start with the ACCA as an organization, we've always, I'm a really good example of that. I am part of the executive board. Our headquarters is in London, but I live and work in Australia. And so that is possible because of the ethos of the organization, that inclusion, that it's about the talent that we have in the organization rather than the location where you are. And one concept that we've propelled, if you want, post-COVID is the concept of global distributed teams, which means that anyone, anywhere in the world that works for ACCA can be part of not just the local team, but any of the other functions, whether it's marketing, whether it's finance, whether it's qualifications, etc. So it's embedded within the organization, but obviously then how we project that into our students and members, absolutely, through the flexibility that we build in the qualification, and also how to people are able to become qualified. We've embedded that flexibility, which means then that is embedded in people's mindsets. So when they go and work for organizations, they actually then bring that into their practice. You've touched very interestingly on Generation Z, and we've done a number of studies in the last few years to really understand that generation, because it's already in the workplace. And we do see that in order to attract the next generations to the accountancy profession, we need to appeal to that sense of flexibility. You're going to be able to build your career as you go through. You won't have to. You'll be able to actually look at that balance of work and life. So I'll just give you an example. For example, somebody who's going through their ACCA qualification, they can start it, they can take exams as they go 4 times a year, but they can do it with great flexibility. So, and that can give them the opportunity to either work at the same time and study at the same time. So that flexibility is not only something that you then take forward, but it's ingrained in how you become a professional. And it's something that we want to continue, because what we see is that people have now, the young people have a very different concept of work. It's about, the opportunities that we can give them, and we need to portray that ACCA and the accounting profession will have all those opportunities if they choose to join the profession.
But also, how do you see the role of Gen Z in becoming the corporate leaders in the future? Because at least people who I talk to, it's a very different sort of pattern we see. A lot of times they're not interested in the typical sort of jobs. It's like 1 year here, 2 years here, and then moving forward, changing sides a lot. The whole, I think the mindset is very different. Do you think in the corporate sector, as well as especially with the ACCA, what you guys are sort of doing to retain that talent, and especially building them as a future leaders?
Yeah, definitely. That's a very, very interesting insight, and one definitely that we see throughout our recent thought leadership pieces. We did one piece last year that we called the Global Talent Trends, that we've repeated this year as well, and something that it will be now part of our professional insights agenda, because it's exactly that. We see that the new generations want a much more latitude to their careers, so that instead of being a ladder, is what we call a lattice. And actually, this is where we are able to match that in the accounting profession. You can, start as an auditor, but then you can go and work for a corporate. You can work in risk management, but then you can, work in sustainability. You can work in FSMG, but you can also work in hospitality sector. So knowing that, being able to choose a profession that gives you multitude of options in your career is something that is very important for the Gen Z, but also the next generations forward. And this is something that we have a lot of discussions with corporates in how they ought to incorporate in their attraction, in the retention of talent. Something that I will share with you is that for us, even in how we operate, we just the last couple of years have incorporated what we call a Gen Z panel.
Okay.
So this is a group of young people that actually inform us, that in a way give us insights in how we ought to appeal to the new generation. So it's very important that corporates and their organizations, even for us, we bring those insights from the new generations in what they want for their future, because there's no turning back. They want to have that balance. And it's very important that we provide all those opportunities. We see, if I can also just mention one last piece that we see across and that we've incorporated ourselves, is that dimension of flexibility in the workplace. For ACCA, we had always had a dimension, but certainly during and post-COVID, we have a remote working policy, which is flexible. And so I work fully remotely.
So you work from home?
I work from, I have a home office, and actually I've had it since 2010.
Wow.
So this is, in a way, how visionary ACCA has been. But now all my colleagues work in that way. Now we understand, and this is, I think, where the global matches the local. There are environments where, being back in the office at certain times is required, but with a very flexible way of being. So we collaborate, and we ensure that people feel that they have that opportunity. So it's much more about what brings you to the office than you have to be in the office. Even in our headquarters in London, we no longer have that mandate, and it's very much about what if you're working and you can do your work remotely, by all means. And we have that digital approach that we call digital first, which means then we're able to collaborate with colleagues from across the world. So I talk to colleagues here in Pakistan, in London, in China, in South Africa, everywhere. And it's on the same level playing field, because we're not having to wait for people to be in an office location. There are times where being in the office is really positive, because it brings that social dimension, that collaboration. But we're very much guided by the needs of our customers and the needs of our employees, and we see that in the conversation that we have with corporates. So this is part of what we also bring through our thought leadership pieces in terms of advice for corporates, and everything. As you probably see, notes that we have to continue to move forward towards that dimension of flexibility to attract the new generations.
And how do you see, let's say, fast forward 10 years or 15 years, now if you're talking about the work from home and, digitalization, where are we going to be in the next 15, or what's going to change then? Because every 10 15 years, you see a drastic sort of change, especially after COVID. It's quite different. So where are we heading now?
Look, I probably wouldn't even go as far as 15 years. I think you will we'll continue to see a huge change within the next 3 years, within the next 5 years. And digitalization is we're all in that journey. And so I think what we will see is the continued adoptions of different technologies that will facilitate the work of all professions, certainly for the accounting profession. It's a very important, I think, and an exciting time, because technology will continue to enable accountants to be the best that they can. And it will continue to evolve the role to be much more in that leadership role that we already actually see. A lot of our ACCA members are leaders in their own right. They are CFOs, they are CEOs, they're leading, public sector departments, and they are really at the point of decision making for their organizations. That has only been possible because they've been able to leave the numbers to technology, and they've gone from looking at the past and the reporting aspect of it to looking at the future and how they use the insights. But I think what we see in the future is that usage of technology, artificial intelligence, as a tool that will allow us to make better decisions, quicker decisions, so that we can have and continue to go towards that sustainable growth that our organizations are claiming, that the new generations are demanding, so that we can build a world that is much more inclusive, that allows for everyone to actually be participating of that economic growth. I think what we'll see, and certainly we hope in countries like Pakistan, is that economic distribution really percolates all the way down, and that means that somebody doesn't have to wait 15 years to be at the top of their career, but that with technology, with choosing professions like accounting, choosing bodies like ACCA, that allows you to be at the top of your game at all times, at every stage of your career, you're able to advance, but also doing it in your terms. Advancing for somebody could be the CEO of a large corporation, while advancing for somebody else could be being their own boss. And we see all of those dimensions coming through. At ACCA, we have a huge surge of members, for example, in the last 5 to 10 years that are entrepreneurs. And actually, to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to be really good with money. You have to be able to, but rather than being part of it, you're driving it, and you're driving it through technology. We're seeing a lot of our members, as I said before, in that world of sustainability and being able to, again, through technological advances. And I think this is where sustainability and AI are not independent. They really have to come together so that we can have advances in technology that support sustainability and that address the climate action challenges that we have today. And so I'm very excited for the profession, because I think the accounting profession has a very significant role in that economic growth and advancement in Pakistan and in many economies around the world.
And is there any new sort of initiative you guys are doing in Pakistan, or like any new programs?
So within the program that ACCA has, which is our main qualification, we are all the time ensuring that we update it to the latest requirements, whether it's from a regulatory point of view, whether it's from the topics and the areas like we've just mentioned on sustainability. So there's new international sustainability standards that are coming into being this year and that were adopted last year in many countries, and that will continue to grow. So we're incorporating all of that in ACCA, but we're also building a number of certifications that will allow both members, but also stakeholders and partners to access that knowledge that would allow them to ensure that they understand what are these changes that need to happen. For us, if I can mention, we are just embarking on a new strategy. ACCA traditionally has worked on 5-year strategies so that we could, have the flexibility of modifying it as some of the challenges that we've seen with COVID. We could pivot when necessary, but also that we had a very clear mandates. And we just launched, actually just last week, a new strategy with an ambition to lead the accountancy profession in what we know is now a changed world. So we're very conscious that we need to redefine what the role of an accountant is, for the reasons that we've been discussing, Talha, to ensure that we attract the new generations, to ensure that areas such as sustainability, technology, are really at the forefront of what an accountant is, but also that we welcome a much more diverse workforce, and that anyone that wants to become an accountant can have that opportunity to do so. And in Pakistan, we will be bringing absolutely, that strategy and implement it. And I said with that, the global dimension that we have as a global body, but ensuring that we observe and we build on the local requirements, and that we support the economic growth. That Pakistan, with not only just its population, but the agenda that is building, then that we can participate and support it.
So we are talking about the sustainability. What are some of the opportunities for the accountants in the sustainability? Because generally, if you see, like, a lot of time people might not understand, like, what does that even mean? Like, in sustainability opportunity for the accountants, like, if you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, definitely. And as we were just talking about before, sustainability in its broadest sense is a really significant opportunity for the profession to take forward. And I mentioned before that, on the reporting space with the new standard sustainability, international sustainability standards, that came out last year, that will come into force. There is a very significant opportunity for accountants to become, preparers of sustainability reporting, and that is within the space that accountants already operate. But of course, as that happens, those standards will have to be assured, and therefore the dimension gets really extended. So sustainability assurance will be a very important part of the future as well. So we will have the general sustainability awareness area for accountants, and where they're able to really drive the strategic imperative for an organization. They'll be able to then look at specifically sustainability reporting, and then the assurance of that sustainability. All of that then will build a pathway for an organization into a net zero journey, or a commitment to being able to action their climate action plan, and their will drive sustainability within their organization. Accountants are the heart of each one of those areas, and therefore there will be so many opportunities. And as I mentioned as well before, the new generation is very concerned with the future of the planet, how we become more sustainable, and therefore it will be an appealing way to actually bring new generations into the accounting profession, because they'll be able to make a difference in the world through that practice of being either sustainability reporters, sustainability assurers, or being in an organization that has that dimension.
So having all of this discussion, and there are a lot of things, what is, like, do you feel like, what is one of the thing, especially in the professional, like whether you're from any sort of, profession, like one thing which is like extremely important to have?
Yeah, and look, we've been talking about so many dimensions of being a professional accountant, the opportunities that come with it, and the many exciting new fields that an accountant and a professional accountant will be able to come into. But all of that gets wrapped by ethics and by being an ethical professional. And this is, if you want, what makes a professional accountant, what differentiates a professional accountant from any other, is at the heart. So every subject that we've talked about, so whether it's sustainability, inclusion, economic growth, technology, the use of any of those, the talent behind all of those, without an ethical backbone and component, often can end up in the wrong direction, whether it's for a society or for an organization. And we've seen a number of those corporate failures occurring. But at the heart of it, a professional accountant that has ethics in everything that they do and how they go about developing their mandate in an organization is really what stands them out against any other, and what eventually brings sustainability and sustainable growth to everything that they do. So it's an incredibly important and central dimension, and to everything that we've talked about.
Are you going to force your children to come into the accounting profession as well?
It's so funny that you should say that, because I would like to think that I wouldn't. I have twin boys, and they are at that age. They're 16, so they're choosing their subjects. And one of them is much more inclined to science, but one of them was very interested last year. They were doing economics and they were doing investments, and so he felt fascinated by the world of investment. And I said, as not just a mother, but a professional in the accounting profession, if you do accounting, you can do anything. Of course, he dismissed that. It took a career advisor at his school to actually for him to see that. And so he came one day back home and said, Mom, I can, if I choose accounting next year, I can do investment, I can do trading, I can do anything. So I'm going to do it. So I'm very pleased that he's doing it, but I'm also very proud that it's not my influence. But I would like to believe that it's maybe the nudging and what he's seen me doing for the last 14 years but who knows? They still have a way to go. But he's definitely doing accounting. So at least one or two hopefully will pursue that. And where they end up, like many young people, who knows?
Lucia, thank you so much for taking the time out. It's lovely talking to you. And you have 1 week in Pakistan, so enjoy and try some of our delicious food as well. I'm sure you might have heard about that. But yeah, thank you so much again for your time.